Hey guys, Excalibur here, and I'm going to bring you the final video of the flight animation blueprint. This is just going to be some small touch-ups here and there, adding in the barrel rolls, and then also making sure that your supersonic is much more snappy and responsive when you fly around, as well as being able to fly through tight spaces. So we'll get right into it. So starting out, a lot of this work is going to be just done right in the AFL Player VP. So you can see there are two new sections that were added. I'm just going to be walking through each part, and from there, you guys, it's not that hard. Just drag off the pins and search everything. I'll also be going along with you as well. I won't go too fast, so you guys can all follow along. So we already did the fall height. We already made sure the character is facing the right direction. We have the ascend and the descend animations, as well as the character flying in the direction of the camera. So next up, we need to fix up the supersonic sprinting, because what we had before is the character was drifting a lot. When you go to turn, the character would drift and their body would be delayed. So going right into it, we already have it set up where the input action for Sprinter Supersonic is set up to left shift. We have a branch that when flight is pressed, so we make sure that the character is flying, we can go into supersonic mode. So what we need to do is we have the set the max fly speed. It is already set up from our previous tutorials, dragging off of character movement. Then you want to find the node max acceleration. So if we drag off and go max acceleration, we want to set the max acceleration. What this does is the character will then speed up at the same pace as the controller as well, so the character will not be drifting anymore. So you want to set this to a pretty high number. I set mine to 50,000. Anywhere in that range, your character will then actually rotate at the same pace as your mouse. It'll feel a lot more responsive when you have that set up. So another, just a quality of life thing I added in is a camera lag. So as you can see, the camera slightly lags just a little bit. It'll help feel a little more responsive as well. So you'd want to have searching for the enable camera lag, but first you need to actually drag out from the camera boom over in the components tab right over here. So just drag off the node, you get a camera boom, and you can do set camera lag and set enable camera lag right there. Make sure it's the boolean, set to true when the character is sprinting, and then you copy and paste and set it to false when they're not. Alright, so now what we want to do is, you'll notice now after you have it set up, the character, their capsule is set to a certain height. And what happens is if you try to fly through a small space, such as under these, your character won't be able to. So the way we fix that is we need to adjust the capsule size to engulf the character at a specific amount. As you can see, the character capsule engulfs pretty much the radius of the character, or the size of the character. Now it's not exact because the character will clip out of it a little bit. However, it is close enough for our purposes. Unfortunately, rotating the capsule is not that easy. So instead what we need to do is we need to grab the relative location of the mesh. So we're going to drag off mesh from our components tab, and we need to set our relative location. And what this is basically doing is saying, hey, the capsule's here, this is where the character is. We need to make sure that the capsule stays with the character as they fly. This will also help with the character rotation as well. So after we have that off, we are going to drag off of the capsule component under the component tab, and we need to set the radius. And now what we can do with this is we're able to tell the capsule, if you click on in the Components tab and go over to the details, you can set the capsule radius normally. So let's say 50 by 100. Now you can see the capsule's slightly bigger and engulfs more of the character. This is for our collision purposes. So what we need to do is we need to have the capsule fit the character when they're in the supersonic state. So the radius that I chose is 40 because as the character is rotated around, it is still about the same size as the character, just adds a little bit extra width and radius to it, so it'll be able to engulf the character's hands as well. And then what we need to do is get the half height. Now, right now, the capsule is already set up to 88. However, when the character is in supersonic mode, they are no longer standing upright. They are rotated 90 degrees. And if the capsule for the collision is still upright like this, if you try to go through a wall, bam, it's going to hit right there, and the character will no longer be able to move. So we need to fix that half height. I set it to about 40 as well. Then what you want to make sure is after the character stops sprinting, is we will disable the camera lag as we did before. We want to reset the character rotation so the character faces back upright, up and down. And then we want to set the relative location to -90. And then we need to drag off of the capsule component and we need to reset the radius as well as the half height. As you can see here, set capsule half height, bam. You have the two nodes. You can just copy and paste from above and bring it down below. And we want to set it back to 34 and 88 as that is what our half height and radius are set to currently. Alright, so now if you hit compile and save, the character should be able to go into supersonic mode and have a much more responsive movement. You can also set up let's just set up some of these so we can test out the supersonic and make sure the capsule is set to the right amount. There. See, character is now able to fly through those no problem. Alright. Make sure we save. But we're not done inside of the player blueprint because I did say we want to add in the barrel rolls. So what we need to do is we are going to set up the keys for A and D to be barrel roll left and barrel roll right respectively. So when the character is in supersonic mode, if you press A or D, the character will do a barrel roll. I also added in a few quality of life things where the camera itself is going to move. So, first things first is we need to go into our animations and search up barrel roll. You'll have your AFL supersonic barrel roll left and AFL supersonic barrel roll right. We want to create anim montages. I already have 2 set up. 1 and 2, right there. Alright, so once those are set up, should be all set and ready to go. Now what we need to do is call those animations to play when we're in supersonic. So, if you just go to keyboard A, right there, keyboard A, you'll have your A key. You can also set it into going to the project settings, go to input, and you can do an action mapping. Yeah, you'd want to do an action mapping for your A and D barrel rolls. but for now, we can just set it through here. So we want to drag off, as you see here, you want to drag off a branch, and you want to have the condition be is supersonic from our variables. Now, if the character is in supersonic, we want to use the controller rotation pitch. So you just drag that off. Boom, set it to true. Bring off, and then you want to play an anim montage. And what we'd want to do is, since we're working with the A key first, we want to play montage barrel roll left. I named mine barrel left and barrel right. And what you want to do is, the reason why you have the controller rotation pitch is if you don't, your character will get all messed up in flying. So you want to set a delay. So off of the return value of the anim montage, you set a delay for that. So this is basically saying, for as long as the animation is playing, we're not going to be setting the controller rotation pitch. So then what you want to do is disable it, and then bring back to reset character rotation to bring the character back to their original state of what they were in supersonic. Then you can pretty much copy and paste and do it for the D key. Just make sure you set the play anim montage to be barrel right. So now what you'll find is your character will be able to barrel roll, but yours will just be playing the animation. You'll see mine actually pushes the character slightly to the left, pushes him slightly to the right. It also punches the camera out a little bit. I'll show you how to set that up as well. So right down below it, we want to offset the camera during the barrel roll. This will give that nice smooth feeling to it, and this is going to be using a timeline. So off of the D key is pressed. This is going to be barrel roll right. So what we want to do is we want to offset the camera and the capsule at the same time. So basically, dragging off of the D key pressed, this is going to be barrel roll right. You want to check and see if the character is in supersonic. If so, I'm going to drag out a timeline, and I'm just going to call this one example. You'll be calling it barrel roll right. Now inside of it, connect true to play from start, so the editor knows to always play from the start of the timeline. And you're going to open up to something like this. So what we want to add is a float. This is going to be camera arm length. And we want to add a vector. This is going to be capsule component. I have it named capsule offset. You can name it to whatever your needs be. So we want to set the time, the length of the timeline right here to 1.25 instead of 5. 5 is the default. The animation will not be playing for that long. Okay, there it goes. So we're going to have we'll start with just the camera arm length. We want to drag out 4 points. The reason why I do that is it'll give it a nice smooth transition between all of the states of the animation. So our first point, just add it. I'm going to set this value to 300 and 0. The reason why, so we set the time to 0 because you want it to be at the beginning of the animation. And you set the value to 300 because your camera boom, if you click on in your details panel, is 300. Now if your camera boom, the target arm length is a little bit longer, then you set it to that amount. And just so we can set up the graph properly, we are going to add in another one, and we're going to say the time, set this time to 1.25 and to 300. Now if you press these two arrows, we're going to zoom to fit. There we go, we got our keys. Alright, so on this one, I have the time at about almost the halfway point, a little bit before, and a value of 624. So we're going to add in a new key right here, 0.46, and a value of 600. So you're going to get a big arc like that. And if you add another one, this second one that I have set up is at 0.77, and then 738. This is the peak of the animation. And 738. Oops. 738. So now you're going to have a peak that goes like this. So the camera arm is going to go out slowly, sharply come out a little bit, and then go right back to normal, to the normal state. Now for the capsule component, this is a little bit different. So we want the capsule to start at 0, 0. So for here, we're going to add zero, 0. Alright. There we are. We have our key, first one set up. And then we're going to set another one to 0, 0. Oh, the time should actually be 1.25. Sorry about that. Alright. So now we have our 2 points on the graph. Now what we want to do is we want to have another smooth transition to push the capsule along with the character. And since the character over in the components tab you see is attached to the capsule, as the capsule is moving, the character will move as well. So we're going to add in 2 more points. The first one will be at 0.41 and a value of 15. So at almost the halfway point, that's where the character is at their furthest, almost their furthest distance. So 0.41 and 15. And we'll set this to 15. Now what you're going to see is all of these blue, red, and green lines. That's the X, Y, and Z axis. So what you want to make sure is we are setting it to just the Y axis. We don't want the character jumping up, and we don't want the character jumping forward. So lock those out. So now you see we just have that nice green line. Make sure you double check all of your points. It looks like, yep, it didn't add one. Okay, so I did make a mistake. We're going to re-go through. First thing you want to do is lock the X and the Z. The character, we don't want them, when they do a barrel roll, we don't want them going up and down like this, and we don't want them going back and forth like that. If we're facing this way, all we want is the character to go left, right, or left. So, going back into it, make sure the X and the Z are locked, the Y is unlocked. So now we can add a key to Y, set that to 0, 0, add another key, and set this to 0, and time of 1.25. Make sure that fits. Alright. Now going in, we're going to add our 2 more points, add another key to Y, 0.44, and it was at 15, I believe. Yep, 15. You'll be able to adjust these on your own, just dragging them around to make sure to fit your character's distance on how far you want them to jump right or left. Make sure you right click on the actual graph line for the Y. So now we're going to set it to 0.83 and 16. Alright, so you'll have your graph set up. The problem is if you keep it at a linear line, when the character goes to do their move, they're going to look like a robot jumping from location to location. So if you select your points, right click on one of them and just select auto. Now you can move these parts around a little bit, move the handles to get the character to move in the direction and how you want them to feel a little bit more organic. Alright, so there we go. We have our two different graphs. So we've got capsule component, camera arm length. Now, going back out to our event graph, we take our timeline we just made. Here's my example one that I made. Here's my preset one. You want the character, you want the arm length for the camera boom and the capsule to both be updated. So, during the animation, during the timeline, we are going to drag off of the update, connect it to target arm length. Where we get that from is, again, drag out camera boom from the components, drag off and do set target arm length. There we go. We don't need to put in any inputs there. We just drag right off the timeline. Bam. So now basically it's saying, as the character is going through the animation right here, the target arm length, we set all of the lengths right here inside of our timeline. We're going to have that update as this timeline plays. The next thing we want to do is drag off of capsule. Hold on. First we want to do is drag off another capsule component. And we want to add local offset. So this is going to push the character in the direction that we want. So you drag off of the capsule offset that we made inside of the timeline, connect it to delta location. So basically what's going on is the character, as they fly, the target arm length for the camera boom is going to adjust. Not only will that adjust, but also the character's location depending on the capsule component, as you can see in the components tab. If the capsule component moves, the character moves. The way you can test that so basically we set it to 0, 0. In your viewport, your character is already set to 0, 0. We want to have them shift slightly to the left or right. We will determine that direction after. You'll see if the character is going to the left, you're going to take these points and you're going to bring them down to the negative. I'll show you that in a minute. We want the character to shift a certain amount of units left or right. So here I chose 15 as they're flying. The arc goes up a little bit above 15 to about 17.65 at its peak. And then we'll come back down and the character will gradually rest back into the 0, 0 location. That is basically what this timeline is setting up. And you connect it to the local offset, and what will happen is after this plays, the animation will have finished up, the target arm length will go back to 300, and then the local offset will go back to 0, 0. That is what it says inside the timeline. We set that up. So now you can duplicate the timeline, and the only thing you need to change is your curve. You need to have it go in the negative direction. So you're going to drag these, you're going to take these 2 points, the first one, set the time to 0.46, and then you want it to be negative 16, and then you want to have it at around 0.96. That's how I set it up for each barrel roll left and right. And again, copy and paste the code that we just did for the right, and you want to bring it down for the left. Simple as that. So now, the final thing that we need to do is adjust the character, so if they hit the wall, you'll find now, if you go in to hit a wall, your character will start going sideways. Whereas you see mine, he just hits and he goes back to normal. Unfortunately, what will happen is, with what you have right now set up, if your character hits the walls, they'll glitch out. So that's a simple fix. So we want to have a new event hit right there. Just type it in, right click, search event hit. And you want to drag off and you want to set the actor, set actor rotation. This is basically just taking off of the player blueprint itself. It's the entire thing. So we want to set their rotation. So when the character hits something, drag off of the event hit, hit normal, rotation from X vector. And we want to lerp that. So grab off a lerp, linear interpolation. I believe it's the rotator. Yes, it's the rotator. Have that for B. And then you want to get your actor rotation. So just do get actor rotation. Bam. Connect that to A. And then you want to set the actor rotation, connecting the return value to the new rotation. And then after they finish hitting a wall, so basically, and then you reset the character rotation. Basically what that's doing is when the character hits the wall, they'll slightly adjust to compensate, and then they will go back to normal after they finish hitting a wall. So they'll go back to flying in a straight path instead of adjusting slightly to the left or right. So there you have it. Now your character should be able to have much more responsive supersonic movement. Along with that, you'll be able to now do barrel rolls for your character to dodge. The great thing about this is since the whole character is actually moving with the barrel roll, it actually works like a dodge, much like those of in the Dark Souls games. When you dodge, the character actually moves. So now your character should be able to have a much more responsive movement. Barrel roll left, barrel roll right. As you can see, if we come around, we can actually barrel roll right out of the way. Alright, so if you have any questions, let me know. Send an email. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below if there's anything else you need to see. Thanks.